If this bill becomes law, I cannot wait to travel to Missouri to buy a 16-ounce soda with a 1-ounce gold coin worth $3,300. Let's talk about it as we explore. This is how this legislation has been painted by an organization here, a so-called independent journalist organization known as AlterNet. Written by Adam Lynch, this piece really does put into perspective how bias works in the media. And supposedly alternative media is kind of what this place is about. But nonetheless, it's about a bill that has been proposed and has passed through the legislative process and is awaiting the signature of Republican Governor Mike Kehoe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Kehoe. But Republican lawmakers are trying to make it possible to enter a Missouri convenience store and buy a soft drink with a $3,300 gold coin, is what the first sentence of this piece says. And already, you can already see the bias in this and the lack of understanding of what this is about. Nonetheless, you and I, we understand precious metals and how what is being proposed here and how it could work. I'm going to get into that in a moment. But we can buy precious metals very easily, and we can also sell them very easily. SummitMetals.com is a place you can buy and sell your precious metals, and they have some of the best prices out there. So check them out and compare when you look at other dealers to see if the price is right for you. But even more important than price is customer service, and they are definitely making a name for themselves there as well. Check them out at SummitMetals.com. The Kansas City Star reports Missouri lawmakers approved a controversial bill that makes gold and silver legal tender in the state. The legislation, backed by right-wing grassroots organization Missouri Freedom Initiative, passed both chambers of the General Assembly as an amendment to a sweeping finance-related bill. It is now headed to the desk of Republican Governor Mike Kehoe, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That is, again, how this article starts out here, and you can see the bias in it. Obviously, they do not want this to pass, and for probably good reason, considering their line of thinking and their ideology. But I will say this, that there are many viewers on my channel who are not right-wingers, who probably are even more progressive, maybe even leftist, but certainly liberal in their thinking politically, and they are for sound money because they see what's happening to the dollar as well. So it's not just a clear-cut case here of just right-wingers in this case. The article continues to say, if approved, the legislation requires state government entities such as the Missouri Tax Office to accept electronic versions of gold and silver called electronic specie currency as forms of payment. This measure does not require businesses like grocery stores to accept gold and silver as payment, but it would allow them to do so. It says does not require them, but the thing is they can accept electronic versions of gold and silver payment as well. That's what. So their ridiculous claim about using a 1-ounce gold coin to buy a bottle of soda is just ridiculous on its face. You know, most places, by the way, convenience stores, they won't even accept $100 bills, which is actually a much smaller case of people wanting to make change and buy just a bottle of soda for $100. But you know, there are other versions of gold and silver out there. In fact, probably the smallest example of the most recognized version of fractional gold out there is in a form of currency. That's right, it is the goldback. In fact, this 1/2 gold Florida goldback would probably be able to buy this bottle of soda. It may take a little bit more, but you can hand them 1 goldback, definitely, and probably get change in regular dimes, nickels, and quarters, or dollars. And it would be very easy to implement, by the way, by grocers and stores and businesses. Very easy, much easier than you think. In fact, it may even be preferred in some cases. Or you could get a gold or silver backed debit card. And by the way, let's say you want to buy something even smaller. Well, that's when you whip out the old dime bag. That's right, I got my dime bag right here full of mercury dimes. And this is definitely a good way, and the smallest recognized fractional silver pieces that you can use. So in combination, there's a variety of different, very verifiable ways to be able to pay for your products. And by the way, worried about counterfeit gold and silver? Well, these are very rarely counterfeited, and they have proven themselves, especially with some of the features that are on them, and as well as constitutional silver is very rarely counterfeited. You do find some examples out there, but if it's a pain to detect those, well, a lot of people feel it's a pain to detect counterfeit currency, U.S. currency, $100 bills and the like. But nonetheless, there are ways around it, and by the way, it's worth it. But nonetheless, this article goes on to say that the goal is about restoring economic and political freedom to everyday Missourians. Finally, they quote a Republican here. The critics scoff at its impracticality. And so when I go to a gas station and buy a Coke, a 20-ounce Coke, and I'd say, here's my gold, are they going to give me back money in gold? Senator John Rizzo, when similar legislation was under consideration in 2023. I'm not a fan of that part of the bill, said Representative Kemp Strickler. Assuming it gets signed, we're in how do we implement it stage. Strickler said the bill's passage was a surprise, and he's anticipated private businesses ignoring the idea because of the extra work involved will be a huge challenge for them. The earlier version of the bill actually required businesses to accept gold and silver as payment, while that version got pushed back from the State Chamber of Commerce. And I don't think it should be required, but nonetheless, it is something that is allowing them to. And what is the bigger pain? Losing value from inflation of your currency? In fact, I'll give you an example. What is a bigger inconvenience? The fact that back in 1913, this was equivalent to this. In other words, these would have been the same. This would have been worth this back in 1913 because the dollar has lost between 97 and 98% of value since then. That is pretty inconvenient, wouldn't you say? Although people will certainly vote for convenience rather than for loss of their purchasing power. Gold and silver provided again, and I guarantee you, with the examples that I just showed you with the different ways that you can spend gold and silver, it would something that could definitely be implemented easily, and I would venture to guess that most stores would gladly accept. In fact, more stores that were to accept are probably going to get more business, considering you educate people and you do this. But nonetheless, there's lawmakers have filed versions of the legislation called the Constitutional Money Act over the past several years, according to the Kansas City Star's piece here. And a message sent to the group's contact page was not immediately returned, but Utah was the first state to legalize gold and silver as legal tender back in 2011. So this is what I call the revolution for sound money. And this video serves sort of as a little different take on how it's presented by some of those that are pushing back against it. And you're going to see probably more of this stuff happen, and I think likely why it's going to be much more of a challenge for states like California and New York and others, or even some of the other states like New Jersey, who finally took taxes away from gold and silver, which is the very beginning of it. But I think if you see more success in some of these other states, and it's going to take a while. This is a long, drawn-out fight. The legislative battle was just the very beginning of this. And again, this is a big deal that this has been brought up and passed through both houses of the Missouri legislature, but has not been signed yet by the governor. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Versions of the bill carried by members of they say, hard right Missouri Freedom Caucus, a group of Republican senators who have pushed the GOP-controlled General Assembly to be more conservative. One of the vocal members of the caucus in recent years, former Senator Bill Eigel, a Weldon Springs Republican, made the bill one of his priorities as he mounted an unsuccessful campaign for governor last year. This is just giving our citizens another option when it comes to how they can pay their bills, Eagle told the Star before last year's legislative session. And we live in an age where the dollar is being inflated and abused by our friends up in Washington, D.C., and he's exactly right. And why can't we have choice with our money? And why couldn't that choice be a constitutional form of money, gold and silver? I agree with him completely. Now, one prominent Democrat, former Senate Minority Leader John Rizzo from Independence, previously called the idea absurd and questioned how it would work in practice, particularly if a shopper paid and wanted their change back. Of course, and it goes back to the whole ignorant statement about using a 1 ounce gold coin to buy a can of soda or a bottle of soda. It's just ridiculous. And it means that he doesn't look to understand. He's just trying to pigeonhole the bill and kind of make it sound crazy. But the thing is how crazy was it to think that a 1 ounce gold coin would be worth $3,000 these days? It wasn't that long ago when some, including myself, by the way, thought it was a crazy notion. If you would have asked me 2 years ago or even a year ago if we'd see $3,000 gold, I probably would have said no. In fact, I would have said no. But here we are, and it could happen. And that's part and parcel to the loss of value of this, the dollar. And people are looking for alternatives, not just here in the United States, but around the world. So I think this is quite intriguing. So I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. I'm going to probably drink this bottle of soda later because it doesn't have any sugar. And I won't need to spend a gold coin to drink it or to buy it. I already have bought it and it's right there. So let me know what your thoughts are about this story and about this angle of the story. It just goes to show you we got a lot of work to do in the revolution for sound money. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.